So, just read right now, looks like she's got some reactivity and then territorial issues, is it?
Yeah, when she's in the car.
Okay.
Yeah, when she's in the car and she sees any dog, she does this, what you're seeing right now, and then it kind of escalates into more of like a guttural sound. She like attacks the window.
Sure.
But, yeah, right now because, well, there's a dog coming up, so she sees that. But.
Sure. See what she does here. So, if she starts being reactive, what I'd have you do is, like, so right now I can already see her focusing, right? She's starting to lock on here.
Yeah.
Is the gentle leader is going to give you a bit more control. So what I would, because I'm assuming that she blows up and starts lunging and barking, right? Is when she starts to lock on, what you're going to do is actually I'm going to have you shorten your leash a little bit more. Yep, and I'll have you pull straight up, and then relax when you feel her relax, okay? So you see, so go in position so you're right next to her, and then up on your leash, up, right? Keep holding up, right? And now wait a moment, keep it up, right? It's okay, now start to relax. Now pull towards you, up, okay? Almost, up. If you need to choke higher, that's correct, good. Now relax, okay? Now up, right? And you're gonna keep your leash choked up like you had it prior. Oh, it's okay. And readjust.
Okay, I'll hold her, put it back on. Just take it all off. Take the whole thing off.
Is she human friendly?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay.
And what's crazy is she's never, like, gotten a fight or bit another dog.
Sure.
But she just does this stuff.
Sure. And I'll explain why all that happens.
Yeah. You ready? She actually goes to a daycare and hangs out with other dogs.
Yeah.
Like, they send pictures and she's fine.
Yeah, because this is, so the thing with reactivity here is she's getting frustrated. Yeah, up. And now relax. There you go. Now up again.
You like strong with it.
Up. Yeah. Up. Right. And then when you start to feel relaxed, you're going to relax. Right. Yeah. Up. And then relax.
When she's grabbing at it, do you want to, like, use your hands to stop her hands? So she doesn't scratch herself, or is it more just focus on going up?
Here, let me show you. So first is, and this is just a band-aid so we can have a conversation, okay? Because when we go up, when I start to feel her de-escalate, because you can see how her tail's wagging here, okay? So that's not a happy wag, that's overstimulation. Okay, so just go up a little bit. If you need to have a little bit of help here, you can. Good. All right, let's just be right here, because this gives me the most leverage. Okay, when you're here, she has more leverage. Okay. Now, gentle leaders aren't meant to control reactive dogs, but it's better than okay.
Yeah, I also have a metal prong collar, but I started using this because she started having irritation on her skin and stuff.
Yeah, and Pitties are known for having skin allergies and stuff like that, so that's not uncommon.
But for training, if you suggest prong, we're on.
Yeah.
Yeah, and now discussing how all this stuff works here. So, the reason why she's not aggressive at the dog daycare is because one, she's out of her element. Okay, so one, you give her something to protect, preserve her family, so she's coming from that space, that's why. And also, you can see, Pitties are known for overstimulation issues. So this whining and this anxiety is overstimulation, okay? So like the person I just came from, I was actually napping in my car because we wrapped up earlier. Yeah. He had a pit too, same problem, overstimulation, okay? So overstimulation is simply a lack of boundaries. So like right now, even though we're sitting still not doing anything, her brain wants to still do stuff, okay? And what happens is when the brain, you see how she's scouting, right? She's like looking for something to do, is it creates frustration, okay? And without the appropriate control, frustration starts to escalate. Then we get the lunging, the barking, and the reactivity. And then if she's in that state of mind, and she were to get to the dog, we might potentially see aggression, okay? Yeah. And so like if this happens, I just choke up. Here. Use your body to my advantage. And then we relax. Okay, so at the moment she gives me what I want, I relax. Okay, so I'm not keeping it tense. I'm not getting through to here, right, because of the tool that I have. But this is, I'm doing. Oh, yeah, sorry. So what we're gonna do here. Okay, so here, the reason why I go up here is if you control the head, you control the body. Okay, so I'm not worried about stopping the behavior right now because I know I'm not going to break through, but I want to be able to control it.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So again, this is not the fix to the problem. This is just so that we can have a conversation. So here, pitties and overstimulation are very common. Happens all the time. Okay. My glass is fogging up. Yeah. So I'll just be blind for a little bit. So here with the reactivity stuff, it's usually just a lack of formal discipline consequences, which I'll talk about. The territorial behavior in the car, right? You said barking in the car and stuff. That's normal, but you can still disagree with it. Okay? So like when you're in your vehicle, that's your own kind of territory. So if she sees a dog outside, or like a person even, when she starts becoming defensive or barking and reactive, she's essentially being territorial and saying like, this is my car, stay away from it. Because when someone's walking by your car, they're not a threat. It's someone walking their dog or something, right? She doesn't know that. So if we go back to wolves, right, wolves have territories. If a stray wolf lands in another wolf's territory, they kill him. Okay? That's their world. Okay? So when you're walking, you're like a traveling territory. So potentially, when she sees a dog, again, you empower her, you give her something to protect, she becomes defensive. Stay away from her. Right? Or it could be she's throwing a fit. And she's like, I really want to play with this dog. She starts becoming reactive because her way of communicating is barking. But then you pull back because barking looks aggressive. Then we create agitation, becomes frustration, and next thing you know, we're creating an aggressive response. Okay? That's also a possibility. What it is, I don't know, right? But those are like the potentials. Because when people see the activity, they tend to think my dog is being aggressive. But like puppies, they bark at dogs all the time. But people don't really see it as aggressive. They're like, oh, they're just like throwing a fit because they want to play. But over time, if mishandled, it can become aggressive behavior because of built-up frustration. Okay? So here, when a dog like barks at the front door, super common, right? Like 5:30 UPS is coming or my guest is coming, but the dog doesn't. So when the doorbell goes off or that knock happens, the dogs are saying like, hey, somebody's here, right? So then there has to be communication so the dog understands what's going on. Does it start to make sense?
Yeah.
Right? So a lot of, when I read your consultation form, I'm like, all right, like she goes to daycare so she can clearly be social, but she's least reactive, right? Because the other thing is, on the leash here, we're removing a response. So we have fight, flight, avoidance, submission. Okay, the two main ones you might hear of is like fight or flight, right? So if she's on a leash, which option does she not have?
Flight.
Flight. That only means fight. Okay. So then, like if a dog is off leash, that's why a lot of people say when my dog is off leash, they're social, but on leash they're reactive. And I go because off leash, their dog has the ability to run away if it feels threatened, but on leash it doesn't. So that's it. It only leads to fight response. Okay.
Yeah.
So, questions about any of this stuff so far?
No.
Okay. So, before reaching out, do you guys do any research on us and how we train and everything?
Yeah. I found your website. Someone recommended you on like a neighborhood group.
Okay.
I saw you use e-collars, which
Correct.
I've been interested in trying and
Correct.
learning.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, prong and e-collar are very effective tools. So prong and gentle leader are kind of similar in control, but gentle leader doesn't allow you to correct. Okay, prong collar allows you to correct because it's shaped like teeth. It's meant to mimic a dog bite. Okay, so dogs bite each other. That's their form of discipline. So like, let's say a puppy, like let's say she was at daycare and like a puppy was jumping all over her. She might nip at the puppy Not because she's aggressive, but to correct the puppy and say, don't do that. Exactly, check it, right? So a prong collar essentially allows you to do that. The reason why I don't use prong that much anymore is because it takes too much technical skill. And if the dog is too far gone when you correct them, it's not going to do anything. Okay?
Yeah, that's kind of what I felt like what was happening with my last trainer I was working with who had me get the prong.
Sure.
I was trying to work on my timing and it wasn't doing anything.
Yeah, and timing, that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Okay, I know a lot of trainers stress timing, it doesn't matter. Okay?
Yeah.
E-collar is the most effective tool because, one, I get off-leash control right off the bat, but also I can match the dog. Okay, so like let's say she's at a level 20 and your harshest correction is a 10. 10 is never going to match 20. Okay, but with the e-collar, I have up to 127. So I can match the dog and break the behavior. So if I have to go to 127 to stop something, I'll go to 127. If I can get it done at 20, then I'm at 20. The dog dictates what number we use by the response to the collar. Okay? So, are you familiar with e-collar and the technology?
I know it's not a shock collar.
That's correct.
And I don't know much about it otherwise.
Have you ever been to a chiropractor or physical therapist?
Yes.
Yeah.
Have you ever had e-stim or tense therapy?
Where they hook up the electric to the needles.
Correct.
Yeah, and it like makes your muscles twitch.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's an e-collar.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so they use the technology on people. It's a miniaturized TENS unit. It just stimulates the muscle. Okay. Now, with they probably started low. They worked their way up, and then you said, "Hey, that's too much," and then they lowered it, correct?
Yeah.
And then they let it do its job. Very similar to dogs. Okay, when we're training, we start low, we work our way up until I find a number, what we call the working number, and she lets it go. Okay, so if she's yelping and rolling on the ground, probably too high. If she's not responding, it's too low. So you have to find that correct working number. Okay, and I help you with all this stuff. So most people would think with a dog like this, we come out, we let them lunge and bark, and we punish them for their behavior. That's actually not how it works. Okay, the first thing we always teach is to heel. Okay? So my style of heel is very strict. If I take 5 steps, the dog takes 5 steps. If I take 1 step, they take 1 step. If I stop, they automatically sit, and I don't care what's going on. Okay, so when you have that level of focus, it fixes like 70% of problems. Okay, so that's the first thing we do. Because the other thing for reactivity is overstimulation. Overstimulation is the brain's inability to shut down. Okay, she has no off switch. So here, when you have that level of focus, it allows, it teaches the brain how to turn off. Okay, because she has to block everything out and focus on you. Okay, and then we see what this is. We see what does it fix. Okay, and then so week 1, we teach the heel. You go do your homework. Week 2, how to go. What progress did you make?
I hate that dogs have to you know?
Yeah, it happens all the time at Oz.
I had to put down my dog this year. He was 13. He was a pit bull, but he was like, he didn't make any noises when the dog came here and was full on.
Sure.
Kill it. And people did that to us all the time. And I'm just calling the police. I would just tell people.
Sure.
You know what I mean? I just got desperate. I'm like, this is crazy.
No, I get you. Me, because I train dogs to be off leash, but the thing is, people like they have what I call off leash etiquette, right? So they're like, oh, okay, they start to move away. They respect your space. Because most people are like, oh, your dog's off. Like, you're with your dog. Let my dog say hi. You know. So we see what does the heel fix, okay? And then from there.
Sorry, that collar's a mess.
That's fine. It's just a day in the office. So
yeah, like you can tell, you just have that touch, you know. Like she's
yeah, and I'm not getting frustrated, right? Like
That's
what I'm
huge.
doing here is I know it's not 100% effective, but it's better than what we had earlier,
Yeah.
right? So we see what does the first class fix. You're making that. How'd it go this week? Jesse's great, like she's good with this and this, like that dog wouldn't be a problem, blah, 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 but we still have this. I go, no biggie, we're gonna work on the second half of the heel, we're gonna make a couple of adjustments, I see you in a week, right? So we cover the second class, I see the third class, how to go, even better, but we're struggling with dogs that bark at her. I go, not a problem, that's normal, this is what we're gonna do to fix it, right? And we just keep progressing on things. The car stuff is the easiest. Barking out the window of the home is easy because it's just don't do that. Okay. Obedience is the more difficult aspect because you have to teach them what to do. Okay. So obedience takes repetition. So like teaching a sit, like you have to shape it and everything, right? And then you practice it, and then you use it in the environment. When it comes to behavior, it's really just don't do that. Okay. So like I was raised old school, I was spanked. So if I didn't do my homework, if I talked back to my mom, if I didn't do my chores, spank, spank, spank. One consequence for a number of things. For dogs, if she were to try to mount a dog, bark at a dog, or jump on a dog, bite, bite, bite. Don't do that. I don't care what you do, just don't jump on me. Don't bark at me, and don't try to mount me. If you don't do that, I won't bite you. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, when it comes to corrective behaviors, that's always simple. It's just finding what correction is she going to need. What correction is she going to need in order to deter the behavior from repeating? Okay, so that's what aversive is for. So have you ever touched the hot stove? Would you do it again? That's an aversive, right? So that you were corrected by a hot stove, right? So aversives are meant to stop things. So the e-collar is both an aversive, but also a form of communication. Okay. So like right now, if I had an e-collar on her, I could correct this behavior. All right. This is why she keeps lunging, because this is being unresolved. Okay. So once we tell her you can't be like this, the brain has to figure out another option, and that's to be like to lay down and fall asleep. Okay. But we always start with the healing exercise to see what does that fix. And you might find like, yeah, Jessie, if a dog barks at her, she'll start lunging and barking. I go, okay, heal didn't fix that. Now we have to correct her and teach her, if you don't lunge and bark, that dog will lunge and bark at you. Does that make sense? Questions on this so far?
No. I mean, we'll get into it later.
Well, when you say like homework, how much time would you commit to each day?
So I like to call myself the lazy man's dog trainer because you train as you go about your life. Right, so every time you walk her, if you walk her for 20 minutes each walk, that's your training.
Yeah.
Okay, you're just training as you live your life with her. The only command that needs to be where you, you need to go somewhere to actually practice is the recall. Okay, is the recall because you have to go to the park, you have to put her on the long leash, you have to call her, you have to practice that. Right, but sit, stay, down, place. If you learn that, you can do that inside the home. You can do that as you watch TV. As you eat dinner, you can do that stuff. The heel or the walking on the leash, well, you have to walk the dog anyways. So you just turn that into training. And e-collar, the way that I teach it progresses very quickly. Okay, as long as you do what I tell you, we make progress. The biggest thing that holds people back is they stay too low. Okay, so like let's say you're struggling with reactivity, and I tell you, go to 65 and start training at 65, right, for the heel. And I see you the next week, and I go, how'd it go? You're like, Jessie, it was a shitty week. And I go, why? I was like, what was your number? 35. Like, I didn't say 35, I said 65. Right? So if you don't go there, we make no progress, right? Now again, we're only going there if what you're telling me isn't working. We have to escalate, right? Every dog is different. And per size, per breed, none of that stuff matters. Every dog is different, right? So people always think like, oh, Jessie, my dog is super sweet. They don't need a high number. And their number will be super high because the dog is physically tough. They're meant to be bitten, right? And they get dogs, big old Rotties, right? And you're like, oh man, their numbers will be high, super low, so they're sensitive. Okay, so size of dog, breed, none of that stuff matters. It just it's just what is she gonna need? Okay, and I've been doing
a high number.
What's that?
I'm gonna guess a high number.
Yeah, and you might think that, right? And then when you start training, it's like, holy shit, Jessie, she responds to 20.
Yeah.
Which is like it's like a sixth of the power, So I've just like told people we play it by ear. We figure that she tells us, And then sometimes the number goes up over time, and then it'll kind of flatten out. Sometimes the number starts off high, but then goes down lower and flattens out. It's different each case.
Yeah, I wanted to ask your opinion too. I'm not sure if you saw it on the conversation forum, but with previous training that we've tried, I've done the private lessons as a trainer, but the difficulty I realized is I was doing what I was taught, but then he wasn't a part of it, so he didn't know how to redo it, and then my roommate who walks her didn't know how to redo it, and everyone was doing different things. So I just want to be effective enough to confuse her.
Sure.
So I'm not quite sure how to go about that investment.
A couple of things. E-collar is it's effective, it's efficient, it's easy, and it transfers very well. Okay? So literally, I'll have one person work with the dog. Call your dog! Get your dog! Your dog should not be off leash. You gonna hurry up? Get your dog.
I said he has really bad diarrhea.
I understand, but it's against the law to have your dog off leash. We can call the cops if you'd like.
Okay, and then we talk to everyone who's over there as well.
They're not over here.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't know you owned this area.
Are you serious?
We can call the cops if you'd like, lady.
You have no ground to stand on. Put your dogs on a leash when they're not in a dog park. It's really simple. Every day with this shit. You know, and then you want to yell at us? Get real. You have nothing to say. Zero. We can call the police. It's a fine. It's ridiculous.
So, that's fine. Put people in their place. You got to.
I'm done with it. I had a dog for 10 years every day with this shit.
Sure.
And he was reactive as hell. Like, dangerous.
I understand. That's why I'm here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, here. Transfer's very easy.
Yeah.
Okay. So, a good video for you to watch is Link on my YouTube channel. There's her full lessons, and then there's what I did a highlight where I broke down a couple of classes. And you see one client, one the owner, the single wife.
I think I saw it was like a tan.
Yeah, inside of in a building.
I only saw it out here, I think.
That's part 2.
Okay.
Okay. So in part 1, I work with like the wife,
Got it.
and then the husband works there, and it's boom, super simple. Transfers are easy. Okay. It happens all the time. So typically, the person who works with dogs first does all the hard work, and then everything else is easy.
Okay, just copy it.
Yes. Okay. The other thing is, because we record everything now, you can just give me videos. Okay? And then, like, if you struggle with something, I send you another client's video. And I say, here, this is what you're going to do. Right? So, like, let's say we try to work on reactivity. We don't see it, whatever. Then I go, no problem. Here's a video where we did see it, and you see me coach the client through everything. So now you have a visual. Okay? So, you know, we started recording because of COVID, because it's so much information, it's verbal instruction, that people would forget stuff, right? So they were like, just go back and watch your own videos if you get anything. Or, let's say the boyfriend can come, the wife can come, they had like a dog walker,
Yeah.
they just send them the videos. So now it's a resource.
I gotta be honest, I was mainly, like, my idea coming into this was send her to board and train because I felt so defeated. I was like, I don't know how
No, you don't
have
want to do
3
that.
people do the
You
same
want to
thing.
do this yourself, okay?
Yeah.
So, and I make more money on a border trip. Okay?
Yeah.
And it's easy work for us, but when we deal with behavior, we already know how to do this, right? Like, I don't have much with me, but I'm using what I can to just have some kind of control, right? So the reason why the in-person would be good for you is you learn more. Everything's tied to you, because I don't touch the dog anymore. I'm coaching you, okay? Like, I step in if I have to, but I coach you through everything, okay? So now you're learning everything hands-on as a habit, okay? Because with the boarding train, the dogs train with us, and then we have to transfer, right?
Yeah.
But then you don't see the hard work. You don't see what we call the messy middle. You know, all the corrections, her blowing up and throwing a fit, having a failure behaviorally, but us having a success correctionally, right?
Yeah.
You want to see all that stuff because that's what teaches you the most, but also that's what teaches her mom doesn't fuck around,
Yeah.
okay? She doesn't know it's me telling you go to 85. She doesn't know that. She just thinks mom went to 85.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, questions on any of this stuff so far?
No,
So
We're really good at doing cool.
Thank you. Doing this for 10 years.
Yeah, no, I'm sure you figured out how to get the least words out, the most.
Yeah,
like
it's pretty much for me. It's like the same
information.
thing every time.
Yeah.
But for people, it's new. So, what determines length of time and cost and everything is just how much control you want. And the biggest variable is just the reactivity. Okay. Have I had failures? Yes and no, depending on what you consider failures. A failure, for the most part, is the owner does not follow through or go to the number needed to stop the behavior. That's the most common one. Okay? Or, and this is super rare, some dogs won't retain the corrective. So, like, my worst case was this guy. He had like a 90 to 110 pound pit, massive dog, super dog reactive. Okay? Now, he could stop the reactivity. Okay, we were maxed out, high power, shut it down. But then 5 seconds later, new dog shows up, blow off again. Okay, so it was a failure in the sense that it wasn't sticking. Like, we did everything, but it was a success in the sense that he could stop the dog, right? And he was like, you know what, Jesse? He's like, I'm good with this, man. He's like, because before I couldn't even do anything, right? And he used to take his dog to the park and have him off leash and play ball and everything. His dog was fully off leash trained. But he just had to, he'd see a dog, he'd call his dog back, he'd leash him up, they would pass, clear, and he'd play with his dog again. So he was responsible, right? So he was responsible. He's like, hey, Jesse, if I do this, is this cool? I said, yeah, because you're being aware of your environment, you're going off in your own space where you wouldn't anticipate someone just coming over, right? But if he saw something, he wasn't going to gamble, like, is my dog going to be okay? He was just like, get your ass over here, leash him up, let it pass, and then go back to playing ball again, okay? So success looks different to a lot of people. In most cases, we shut it down. The dog, I don't need her to like dogs when we're on the leash and stuff. She can do that at dog daycare, right? I just need her not to be a jerk, okay? I need her to not lunge and bark and be like all anxious and overstimulated. Right? So like if I go to Trader Joe's, I don't say hi to everybody, but I'm a social person, And if someone stopped and asked me for directions, I'm like, yeah, sure, let's go over here, right? And if somebody wants to have a conversation, I may or may not have that conversation. But it doesn't make me antisocial if I don't. Right? Same thing for dogs. Okay, social for a dog is being like, coexisting and not being like this. So I don't yell at people. So it's similar for dogs, okay? So the way I structure this in terms of cost and again length of time is how much you want to get done. The way, so at minimum, I would suggest 6 classes. Okay, 2 classes on heel. What does that fix? My assumption is it's going to fix a lot of this stuff, okay? If we're still struggling with reactivity, that's usually a class in itself, because now we're just going to tweak things and I'm going to tell you about escalating and all that stuff, okay? Now, if you're having trouble with it, we can always create controlled context. Where you're at my facility, we bring dogs up. And we walk around with the dogs and stuff and we close the gap and everything, so you have a foundation of what to do, as opposed to kind of like in a setting like this, where we can't control people that walk by with dogs, right? As long as that's all going good, then we just continue with the obedience. I just teach you more skills. Because the discipline from the e-collar is actually what's fixing the problem, not the obedience. Okay? Sit, stay down, calm. I'm sure she knows how to sit and all that stuff, right? That did not fix the behavior because there's no discipline. As soon as we put in discipline, that's when we start to make changes. Okay? So what I always prioritize is the heel and the recall, aside from the behavior. So 2 classes on heel, maybe a 3rd or 4th class on behavioral stuff. As long as that's all going well, then we move into recall. Okay, because you want to be able to call your dog, treat your dog with
I don't want to business with her. She just wants to be here.
Oh no, that's fine. You're more than merry. Let me take for camera real quick. I think it's like drifting a bit. How are you guys doing?
Good, how are you?
Doing good. Just working with Gidget here. So we also have the 9 and 12 week programs, and that's essentially as long as again behavior is going well, more skills. Sit, stay down, place or whatever. If you need those things, okay. For your behavior, or not yours, your dog's. For her behavior, the essential is the heel, and simply how do we correct the behavior, okay? The recall, of course, is in case something happens, she gets off leash or whatever. Have a means of getting your dog out. Those are the 2 most important things, okay? Everything else is kind of superficial. So if you want more control, where you can go to a restaurant and just chill at your feet, that requires like a downward replacement.
Yeah, I don't anticipate needing that, or I just, yeah, I want it to be like realistic or not, you know.
Well, let's
Maybe
see how
one
the
day.
first couple things go.
Yeah, maybe
You know,
one day,
see
but
how
yeah.
she handles
Yeah,
with you.
this is super common because people
Yeah.
always go like, yeah, that's not going to happen. And 99% of the time it does
Yeah.
because of the tool, you know. But again, you pick and choose. I don't care. My priority is what you want to get covered, right?
Yeah.
The barking in the car, barking out the window, again, that's easy. I'm not worried about that because it's simply don't bark out the window of the car, right? But it's you walking on the leash and coexisting out here with other dogs walking around. That's the problem. Okay.
Yeah.
Other questions?
Yeah.
When you say, like when they bark at the door or they bark in the car and you say just don't do that, like I've gotten to the point where I'm screaming at her, I've hit her multiple times and she just keeps going.
I think you mean with the e-collar.
Because you
Okay.
have to match it. So even
Yeah.
if you're using physicality, right? Like let's say you bop her with like, the newspaper, right?
Yeah.
Dogs don't bop each other with the newspaper, plus it's a newspaper, right? Like how much is that going to hurt?
Yeah.
The e-collar, again, that contraction, the intensity of that bite, right? Again, 127
Right.
right? I'm gonna find something to stop it, right? And then once you match her, where she's like, crap, like that's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Now we start communicating. Okay, so like let's say because people, you guys drive,
Yeah.
you go on the expressway, you go the speed limit.
No.
What about you guys?
I mean, sometimes a little over, but
A little over. It sounds like a no. Yeah. So what that's called is opportunistic behavior. Okay. If you can get away with it, you'll try it, right? And then speeding is the most common thing that people do.
Right.
But if you see a squad car, what happens? Right, you're gonna get a ticket. Threat is there, right? For the consequence. So same thing for the dog. Think of the key collar at the top of the collar, right? And I can match the dog to the behavior, or match the pressure to the behavior, right? So like let's say going over the speed limit, even by 1 mile, was like a $5,000 fine. Do you think people are gonna speed? No. How many people can afford to spend $5,000 every time they go a mile over the speed limit, right? So if the consequence is very high, all of a sudden people are much more compliant. But because it's only like a $50 to $100 fine, people risk it. Plus you can tell, right? You watch ahead and you watch other people, they're slowing down, there might be a cop. You see the red and blue lights flash, you know the cop slow down, right? But then as soon as you pass and you're in the clear, back up again. Okay, it's opportunistic behavior. So expect that when you walk her, or whenever she's going to be out or whatever, by dogs or in the car or something, you have your collar on. But if she's a great dog otherwise, you don't have it. You don't need it. Okay, so it's going to always be present when you need it, but you're not always having to use it ideally, right? It's you've done your training, you've done your practice and everything, but it's present in case some jerk with her dog is running up to you off leash, right? Or if she were to get off leash and start running towards your feet or something, you have the ability to get control. Because life isn't black and white, you're going to get some gray area. And you want to know that within, if something happens or should experience, you have the ability to shut her down or get her down. Okay? And all that stuff I teach you get within the system. Because it's really logical. Once you understand the concept, it's very simple. Right? And then I coach you through it and I'll give you examples of like real life scenarios, how to handle them. And once you have that knowledge, it's really just, hoping it doesn't happen, but then you'll know what to do. Okay? Other questions, other concerns? So, Maria would reach out, she'd contact you, she'd give you the pricing, and then you pick and choose. Again, I don't care what you do, but 6 is definitely the minimum in terms of getting all the things you listed under control. Okay. Worst case scenario would be like, let's say you did 6, we spent 2 on heel, and for whatever reason we're just struggling with the reactivity stuff, right? Is we may not get to recall because we're spending more time on trying to squash the activity.
Yeah.
Okay. And what I tend to do, like I had a young lady whose dog was super reactive, and she ended up being to 127 the dog.
Oh, wow.
Okay. And when we hit I think it was the 4th or 5th class, I started spacing her out there, and I didn't see her for 2 to 3 weeks because she needed more time to practice and apply to make sure it was going to work.
Right.
Right. And then finally, I was like, all right, 127. We did it in the class, and then I didn't see her for 3 weeks. She's like, yeah, Jesse. She's been great ever since then. I go, perfect. Now we'll start the recall.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So if I start seeing we're running tight on time, that's what I do, and I'll tell you, like, email me.
Yeah.
Because I'd rather have our in-person stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I have an ego where I'm like, I said I'm going to get it done in this
Yeah.
class, so I'm going to get it done.
Yeah.
Because it's very straightforward towards that end, because you have enough insight on how to use it. That I can email you instructions, And then it's like when you hit a plateau, then it's like, okay, now I need to train. And now we're going to work with corrective behaviors. So we're trying to get the most out of those classes. Most places, it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah. Well, it's good to hear that you recommend, me doing it. You're the professional. Whatever you said, I was going to go with.
On that day.
Yeah. But, with the 6 sessions, I'm dedicated to doing whatever I have to do to help her
Sure.
and just make her life less stressful.
Sure.
So even if it's not 6, I mean, that's doable.
And you can always extend.
Yeah.
It's just you pay more money per class.
Okay.
So the way it is like, let's say you decide to do 12, your cost per class is cheaper because you're committing to 12 right off the bat.
Got it.
But if you do 6 and then another 6, you would pay that rate. So you're paying a higher per class rate. So it's whatever you want to do, but 6 is the minimum that I would do to finish this.
Yeah.
Okay? Other questions?
No.
So Marie Rio would reach out. She'd look at, she'd give her times and she'd look at my calendar and all that stuff.
Okay.
Ideally, if it's, if you two are the primary handlers, ideally the both of you there. If that's not possible, no big deal. We do film the session, so you of course you can take care of the videos,
Yeah.
and it's easy. So it's pretty straightforward. The hardest class is the first class is always the hardest. So if there's one you want to really stress making it to, that's the one. Otherwise, after that, it's kind of like they can pop in and out. Anyone who's going to handle the dog is more than welcome to show up. If five people show up, I'm going to prioritize you and whoever would handle her the most.
It's us 3. Kyle just things out.
Sure.
It's us 3.
Sure.
Yeah, us 3 are probably the primary.
Yeah, so that's what I do is I just prioritize who's going to handle the most.
Yeah.
And then if somebody else shows up another time, then I work with them a little bit more. So kind of see who's done, who's done.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else?
No, not that I can think of.
Okay. And I suggest just go to my YouTube channel, watch videos.
Yeah.
They'll give you more insight. You can see how it works and all that stuff. I've also had people like kind of skip ahead and watch other videos instead of trying things, so then they learn more stuff. And I just keep building. I don't really limit people. That's why that stuff is there. It's very transparent. I'm like, educate yourself. We've had people train their own dogs from watching their videos.
Yeah.
And that's what we're trying to do, is just educate people and all that stuff and let them know, like, these tools are perfectly safe. They just get a bad rap because there's drama in the dog training world, but also people misuse the tools.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Okay, sounds good.
So I'll give it back to you here.
Thank you.
If anything pops up, if you have any concerns, shoot us an email. Otherwise, we'll be looking at contact with you.
Okay.
Probably tomorrow, because I think today's her day off. So then she'll get in contact with you. Because the other thing is we've had a ton of consultations come in. It's not being very busy. But she'll get you all situated.
Okay,
Okay,
well,
guys?
thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
thank
Thanks
you.
for
It was a pleasure.
Yeah.
Sorry about that different asshole from earlier.
No,
No.
it's not your fault.
What are you going to do about it?
Thank
Sorry
you.
if I swore on camera.
No, I do all the fucking time. Thanks.
Have a
Take
good
care,
day.
guys.
Have a good one.